Hello everyone, welcome to another lecture on C++ programming language. We are on lecture 31st on C++ and we are on conditional statements. And in this lecture, I'm going to talk about switch statement. What is switch statement in C++, how we can use the switch statement and why we use the switch statement. So the switch statement is, a conditional statements. It's like if else statements, which, we used on previous lectures, and we wrote many programs on that and is used to check multiple conditions. But in switch, we use the switch statement to check for selections or multiple options, like a menu, like if you go to a restaurant, there's a menu. It says, you have a menu for the meals, you have a menu for, drinks. So it's actually used to check, multiple selections. Unlike if else statements, which is used with multiple operators like, greater than or equal, or less than equal. But the switch statement only used to check for equality operator. And also remember that the switch statement is also used for, with integers like short, integer, long, and character. And we cannot use with strings or, doubles. So we are on lecture 31st. And in this lecture, we talk about switch statements. So switch statements is also, like it's a conditional statement in C++, but it checks for multiple selections. It checks for multiple selection. And how we can write the switch statement in C++, or what is the syntax? So we have switch, and then we have parenthesis. We close the parenthesis, and inside the parenthesis, we have our expression. Expression may be, a variable, like a variable, Like, for example, if we define here integer x is equal to 10, so we can put here the expression like x instead of this expression. So the x is, variable or expression. Then we open, the switch block, and we close the switch block. So we open the switch block and we close the switch block. Anything between these blocks, it's related to switch. So inside the switch, we have cases. So we have case constant. I call this case constant 1. And then we have colon. And then we write code to be executed if constant, like I can write here, if constant 1 is equal to expression 1 equal, I can put here. Then we have break. Then we have here break, semicolon. Then we have case constant 2. And we have colon, then code to be executed if constant second is equal to the expression. And we can write as much as case we want, and we put here the break. Break means it breaks. It, break the execution of, the code here. And at the end, we can put multiple, we can write multiple cases, case constant 3, case constant 4, but at the end we have default. In switch we have default, and then we can write code to be executed if none of the above cases match. If none of the above cases match wait expression. Wait, I can write here wait exp expression. So this is a simple syntax how we can write or implement switch statements on our C++ program. So first we have the switch keyword, and then we open the parentheses here, we close the parenthesis. Inside the parenthesis we put an expression. An expression may be a variable like x, and then we open the block of the switch, and then we close the block of the switch. So inside the switch we have cases, we have multiple cases. The case is also as C++ keywords. Then in front of the case, we put constant 1. There may be a value like this is 10. I can put here case 5, or case 10, or case 15. If this constant value is equal to this expression value, so any code we have after this, it will be executed. And then the break the execution of the program here, and it will transfer the execution of the program after the block of the switch. So the remaining part of the program will be executed. If this constant is not equal to the expression, so it goes and checks for second constant. Then if this constant is equal to this expression, so any code we have here, it will be executed. And then breaks the execution of the code and transfer the execution of the code after the switch statement or after the switch block. Any code we have, the remaining part of the code will be executed. And then we have case constant 3, case constant 4, case constant n. At the end we have a default. It's like else. Like we have an if else statements, we have else. And if else statements, we checked that if none of the above if or conditions are true, the else section will be executed. Here, if none of the above constant is not matched with this expression, is not equal with this expression, so the default part will be executed. Then we put a code here. Any code we write here, it will be executed. And this is the syntax for switch statements. So for example, let's write an example so you understand how we can use the switch statement in our program. So I clean the whiteboard. Now let's write an example. Let's write a simple example. If I have integer x is equal to like 10. X is equal to 10. Now we use switch here. I use switch statement and I check the value of the x. I open the block of the switch and I close the block of switch. So here I check case 5. And then here I can see out and say x is equal to 5. And then inline and break. Then I can check another case 10. And I here see out x is equal to 10. end line, and then break. We have break, B-R-E, break. And then we have default. I can write here default, and I see out here and I can see out, and I say X is not 5 and neither 10. Quotation and semicolon. So if you see in this example, we declared a variable called X, and we assign it a value of 10 to this variable. And now we use the switch statement to check the value of X with the case statements. So here we have the X, and then we have our first case, which says case 5. What happens here, we check if the X is equal to 5. In first case, we check like if the X is equal to 5. So we check, is 10 is equal to 5? No. So this part of the program will not be executed. Then it goes to another case, and now we have case 10. If the value of 10 is equal to the value of X variable, yes, because X is 10, so 10 is actually equal to 10. So in this case, because this two value matches, and I told you at the beginning of the lecture that the switch statement only checks for equality. It checks the value of X is equal to 5 or not. If it is not, so this part of the code will not be executed. If it is 5, so this part of the code will be executed. But in this case, because the value of variable X is 10, so the first case will not be executed because this is 5. And this is not, 10 is not equal to 5, so it's not true. So now in the second case, we have case 10. So this 10, this value will be evaluated and checked if this value is equal to the value of the X. Yes, value of the X is 10, and 10 is equal to 10. So it's become true. Now this part of the program will be executed. See out, X is equal to 10. So the output of this program is X is equal to 10. X is equal to 10. This is the output of the program. But for example, if I change this one to the, this value, I can change this value to 20. And now we check here, is 20 is equal to 5? No. So this part will not be executed. Then if 20 is equal to 10, no, 20 is not equal to 10. So this part will not be executed. Then the default part will be executed because none of the above constants are equal to the X value. So the default, it says cout, X is not 5 and neither 10. So that is now the output of our switch, our program. So this is an example of switch statement, how switch statement works, and how we can use the switch statements in our program. So I hope you understand this lecture, which was about switch statement in C++, how we can use the switch statement in C++. But don't worry if you don't understand, because we will write many examples so you totally or completely understand in the future lecture. So now it's time for practice, and let's go in our systems or in our computers and write some example of switch statement. Yes, I'm back in my system. So let's open our IDE, our C++ IDE, and we are on lecture 31st, and we talk about switch statement in this lecture, which is a conditional statements which checks for multiple selections or operations, and also support only integer, char, short, long. but it does not support float or double or a string. And it also checks only for equality. Checks only for equality, and it cannot check for the uh, less than or less than or equal, or greater than or greater than equal, not equal. So it only checks for equality. So let's write an example of switch. So when I give you an example, you better understand, how switch works. So I write a program which asks the user to enter a number between 1 to 3. So I declare a variable called number, and I see out, and I ask the user to enter a number between 1, like let me put inside 1, 2, 3. And then I store this, the number which is entered by the user inside a variable number. And then I use our switch. So switch, we have to check the number. So, and now I open the block of switch and I close the block of the switch. So inside the switch statement, we have cases. Case 1, case 2, case 3, case 4, case 5, case 6, until case n. And then we have default. So we write our case. So our first case is case 1. If the value which is entered by the user is equal to 1. So this value, the value of the case, will be, compared to the value of the variable. Like, for example, if the user enters a value, like it enters 1. So 1 is become equal to 1. So now any code we have here, so I say here, I write here our code, I say number is equal to 1. And end line, and then I put our break. Then we can check for case 2. If the user enters 2, what should happen? I write a simple, cout, and I say number is equal to 2. And then I write a break, which breaks the execution of the program here. Then I write the case 3. And sorry, the case should be there, okay? Case 3, and I see out case 3, and I see out number is equal to 3, and then I have to put the break, and at the end we have default, and I say number of out of range. Out of range, I put here 1-3. And let's first, compile and run this program so you see how this program works. So let me compile and run the program. And it says enter a number between 1 to 3. I just enter 1. And I see here it says the output of the program is number 1. Number is equal to 1. If we check here in our program, we declare the variable called number, and we ask the user to enter a number between 1 to 3, and then we store that number inside the variable number. And we entered here a number 1. You see here, we entered 1, and then 1 is stored inside the number. And then the value of the number variable is, compared to the case value. So our first case is 1. It means it checks if the number value is equal to 1, in this case, on case 1. So because we entered the value of 1, so the value of number 1 is equal to 1. So this case will be executed, and the code we have after that, it will be executed, which says number is equal to 1, as we can see the output of the program. And then the break will be executed, and the break, it breaks the execution of the program. Any code we have after switch statement, it will be executed. For example, after switch, I put here, I see out and say, I say after, I can say after switch statement. So let's run again the program. And I enter number 1, and it says number is equal to 1, and after switch statements. What happens here, the value of number is 1, and now it compares the value of this variable, which is number, with the value of 1, which is our first case. If they are equal, so, the code which is after that case will be executed, which is true, the number is equal to 1. And now the break statement will break the program or the break statements and transfer the execution of the program after the break, which we have here, see out after switch statement, if you can see here. So once the value become equal with any case, the break, breaks the execution of switch statements and to transfer, the execution to the next, statement after the switch. So now if we run this program again and I enter here number 2, look how it works. It says number is equal to 2, and then if we see after switch statement, or we can say after switch block. So here what happens, we enter the number 2, the number variable now stores the number 2 and 2. Here inside switch, 2 is not equal to 1, so this part of the program will not be executed, this part of switch, and it goes to another case and it checks the value of variable and number is equal to 2, so 2 is equal to 2, so this part of the program will be executed. And then if we, run again the program and we enter like 3, if you see, it says number is equal to 3 and after switch statements. So this case, it checks the equality if the number is equal to 1. No, it's not. So it will not execute this part. If the number is equal to 2, no, it is not. So this part will not be executed. If the number is equal to 3, yes. So this part of the program will be executed. It choose number is equal to 3, then breaks or stops the execution of, the statement inside switch, and it transfer, the execution of the program after the switch block. If you can see here, after switch statement or after switch block, we can put here. And then if here we have case 3, but in switch, we have also the default. So let's run and execute this program. It says enter a number between 1 to 3. So I enter number 5, which is not enter 1 to 3. So if you can see here, it says number out of range, 1 to 3. So if we check, the default part of the switch statement is executed. Why? Because first it checks is the number is equal to 1. No, it is not. So it will not execute this part. So if the number is equal to 2, it will not execute this part because the number is not 2. We entered 5. Then it checks if the number is equal to 3. So it compares the value of, the variable with the case value, with the each case value. If they are not equal, so that part of the program, that part of switch will not be executed. At the end, because we entered here, if we can see here, we entered a value of 5, which is not 1, 2, or 3. So if none of the cases match with the value of the variable, so the default section of the switch will be executed, which says number out of range 1 to 3, as you can see here. And then we have, after the switch block and code in our program, we have maybe thousands of lines of codes. Yeah, so this was, our lecture 31st, and it was about switch statement and how can we use the switch statement on C++. So we will, on the upcoming lecture, we will, write many example with switch statements. So you learn how you can use the switch statements in your program. So thank you for watching this video and see you on the next lecture.